Welcome to The Ripple Effect. My name is Kelby Lakeston. I'm just a stone's throw away, and I'm hoping you'll dive in with me beneath the surface to get to the bottom of things. I'd like to talk about the state of the world, what is really happening, and why. Today I'm talking about global government, shockingly enough. I also want to add how important it is. So when you're reading the news, like news about another country or the economy or any issue really, that you need to start looking at it from a personal level. Say, how is this going to affect me? It might be happening, in Europe or America or wherever it's happening. Since it's under global governance that they're bringing in, it's going to trickle down to you eventually. It's going to be the same where you're at. So you need to start asking, how will this eventually affect me? It's not just talking about them over there, or it's going to come to your local municipality and it's going to affect you. Now, I have an article I want to read a few things from. The article is titled, "World's Big Cities Set to Become Even More Crowded." Now, I think on my first episode I talked about sustainable cities, sustainable development. And so when you read the paper or read anything coming out of the news or hear anything from the news, you need to change your frame of mind of what they're saying, because it's all becoming the same thing as far as how global government and standards are coming to you directly as an individual. How they're just rolling out their agenda and they're putting it out there in the paper. Most people don't pay attention or don't really see what they're saying, but you need to change your frame of mind and really think about what you're reading. Okay, sustainable cities. They want to get people out of the countrysides and the suburban areas to bring them into the cities for, more control basically, and have more of the land to themselves. But as I said, it will be, the supposed high-speed rail for transportation, or the buses, or walking or biking. They don't want people to have their own individual cars. Everything will be controlled because sustainability and governance is about not having elected officials, but everything will be in the hands of an unelected, unaccountable council, which get their dictates from, a UN or some other global, NGO, or which is a non-governmental organization, that will trickle down from a government standard, not anything local. So an unelected, unaccountable board will be, dishing out the rules to you, and it will be the same all over, because that's what they want. It will be standardized. They got the setup all over in the papers. They're just, everything is a setup for the next step, prep for the next step, as I said. The article says the world's big cities are already bursting at the seams, but are set to grow even larger, with experts predicting that some 70% of the world's population will be urban by 2050. Well, they're predicting it because they're planning it that way. Continuing, this will put great strains on infrastructure and the environment, and presents a major challenge to city planners, developers, and mayors who gathered here this week at MIPIM, the world's leading annual real estate event, to look for the best way forward. The future of the world lies in cities. London's Mayor Boris Johnson told a packed auditorium at the opening day of MIPIM Monday. He was among leaders taking part in a mayor's think tank here, who says they are increasingly starting to work together and looking for urban development initiatives. Whenever you hear about urban development or city planning, or anything. See, used to be what you think it is, but now it all has to do with global. Always think it's global, because it is now. That's what you need to keep in mind. Cities are where people live longer, have better education outcomes, and are more productive. Now see, they're talking about for them. They have, see, when they talk about have better education outcomes, in their eyes, in their books, they're better educated for being a global citizen. Regular people read that and say, oh, better education outcomes, that's great, people will be smarter and blah, blah. No, they're talking about being a global citizen and more productive for what they want you to do in the planned economy. Johnson noted, adding that cities are also where people emit less polluting carbon dioxide per capita. Okay, get the point there. They'll have better controls, tighter controls on your carbon dioxide, meaning the energy you use. That's why the smart grid, the smart meters, all this, it's going to actually control how much energy you use. Your thermostat will be controlled. Your water meter, that's why they're going, everything is digital and electronic and so-called smart, because they can shut it off or turn it on at their whim to say, oh, you're using too much, because you will have a certain amount you're allotted to use, because they know how much. They'll see in their standards and benchmarks and all this, they have it all figured out on how much you should be using for yourself or for a family or for whatever. They know, according to them, how much is needed, and that's what you're going to get or less. It'll be based on a lot of things, but that's one thing, is how, like I said, everything in the global governance is efficiency. For them and their planned economy. Much of the surge in the next 40 years will occur in cities in emerging countries such as China, India, Asia, Latin America, and Africa, all of which are growing very fast. Jones, Reader in International Planning and Sustainable Development at the University of Westminster in London, told AFP. There is a massive explosion of urbanization, and this will have major impact on communities, businesses, economies, and specifically our environment. Increased urbanization, however, also concentrates risk, as many big cities are in earthquake and flood zones, and climate change is likely to intensify these risks. Okay, getting back to the environment and then the green agenda, as I say, it's all about this less demand for energy. They want us to, well, they're going to put us in a predicament where we don't have a choice. The price will be too high, you can't afford it. Plus, there'll be restrictions on how much we get to use, due to climate change, supposed. So to bring in, get rid of fossil fuels and bring in the wind energy, solar energy, and all these others. Key issues for dense cities over the coming years will include sustainable development, transport, and energy use. See, they're telling you, they're explaining the whole thing right here. Obviously, with the price of oil going up, the pressure is on to conserve fuel and energy, he emphasized. This means that cities need to become more efficient in terms of transport infrastructure and investment in public transport. See how they're telling you how it's going to be. They need, the pressure's on to conserve fuel and energy. And see, it's not just, in London or all these other places. It's everywhere. It's going to be you. That's why I say look at it as this is going to affect you in your home, in your heat during the winter, in your air conditioner if you have it, or even have a fan running in the summer. How much water you use. It's all going to affect you. Personally. Take it personally. The city of Melbourne in Australia plans to create denser residential areas along transport corridors, increasing the use of solar power and recycling more on site. That's another thing. The cities will be along the corridors, and they're even saying it, corridors, using that term. Just look up and look into sustainability, and you'll understand more of what's being said. Well, that's one article. I also wanted to get into another article about European Union, I should say. I wanted to make the point how it's all been planned. Everything you see is not, some big surprise out of the blue. It's been planned of how they're going to do things. And then they just roll it out like, oh, look, we just had this meeting and come up with this. No, it's been on the agenda for some time. I'm going to read some things out of an article from March 24th of 2010. I mean, they've planned this way before this, but this is just to give you some background. The article is titled, EU Leaders to Push Eurozone's Economic Governance. See how it's not government, it's governance. So these are some of the buzzwords that you could look for. But as I say, we're so entrenched in this global stuff that everything they talk about is referring to global. Anyway, the background. The idea of economic governance for the Eurozone is part of the EU's strategy for sustainable growth and jobs called Euro 2020, which came in the midst of the worst economic crisis in decades, which they caused. Okay? The new strategy is set to replace the Lisbon strategy adopted in 2000, which largely failed to turn the EU into the world's most dynamic, knowledge-based economy by 2010. The new agenda puts innovation and green growth at the heart of its blueprint for competitiveness and proposes tighter monitoring of national reform programs, one of the greatest weaknesses of the Lisbon strategy. So, see, they're saying there's the blueprint. They're saying the Lisbon strategy failed to turn the EU into the knowledge-based economy. Knowledge-based. See, think about these terms. That's another buzzword. How they're deindustrializing you, and then they try to turn a country into a supposed knowledge-based. Well, look that up and see what that means. Now the article from a year ago. As the Greek debt crisis continues to haunt the Eurozone, EU leaders are meeting this week to agree closer coordination of their economic policies. Okay, right there, see, as we know, when the EU region, I think they're supposed to have, they want to bring it, 7 major regions, and EU is a example of a region right there to start consolidating power and merging and harmonizing the regulatory system. So see right here it says EU leaders are meeting to agree to closer coordination of their economic policies. So it's all standardized and the same. Coordination at the level of the Eurozone will be strengthened in order to address the challenges the Euro area is facing. The strengthened coordination rules are to be agreed as part of the proposal